Locho sambo pagyo trashi pa tuche tempe trinle yarngoda pelge drolor zambe ze parche palde lame shabla solvade Oma Guru Vajradhara Sumati Monishas Utta Vardanya Shri Sarva Siddhi Oma Guru Vajradhara Sumati Utta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Oma Guru Vajradhara Sumati Monishas Utta Vardanya Shri Bhad Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Oma Guru Vajradhara Utta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Om Guru Vajradhara Sumati Monishasane Kar Utta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Om Guru Vajradhara Sumati Monishas Utta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Om Guru Vajradhara Sumati Monishasane Kar Utta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Om Guru Vajradhara Sumati Monishasane Kar Utta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Pakyuke Kudan Dagi Olu Pakyuke Sundan Dagi Anga Pakyuke Tugdan Dagi Yi Yerme Chikto Chingi Olo Makyuke Kudan Dagi Olu Makyuke Sundan Dagi Nga Makyuke Tugdan Dagi Yi Yerme Chikto Chingi Om Muni 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 Shakya Muni Soha Om Mahamuni Shakya Muni Svoha Om Muni Muni Mahamuni Kyamunye Svoha Sangye Chedan Tsoke Chonam La Chancho Pardo Dani Kyapsu Chin Dagi Jinso Gibe Sonam Ki Drola Pinchra Sangye Drupar Sho Sangye Chodan Tsoge Chonam La Jancho Pardo Dani Kyapsu Chi Dagi Jinso Gibe Sonam Ki Pinchre Sangye Drupar Sho Sangye Chodan Tsoge Chonam La Jancho Pardo Dani Kyapsu Chi Dagi Jinso Gibe Sonam Ki Drola Pinchre Sangye Druparasho. Nel Buddha, nel Dharma e nella Sangha.
In the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha, I take refuge until enlightenment. Through the practice of generosity and the other perfections, may I obtain Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings.
Namo Alhaike Dan Vidane Chinke Drubudanda Mike Namda Druwa Kuinge Dhanamachi Tsampa Tamcheke to Dagi Chetento Tamcheke to Dagi Chetento. Quello che stiamo facendo,
What we are doing in these days starts from, it's like starting to talk about a faraway place. So we start imagining this place, understanding what it is, and at a certain point we say, okay, how do we get there? Until in one moment we receive a map. And one of the important things of a map is where we want to go, where we are right now. Because if I don't know where I am, even if I have a map, it's complicated. And understand which are the steps in order to arrive where we want to arrive based on where we are right now. If we start following a path that at a certain point, I don't know, there is, for instance, the sea and we don't have a boat, it's an issue. So we have to know the path, the steps we need to follow, etc. And when we talk about our inner states, there is the terminology, the spiritual path, because it's not something that you don't have and then at a certain point you have it. It's not a spiritual gift. It's not something that someone gifts us. It's not a miracle that at a certain point we have concentration, for instance. It's a gradual path made of one step after the other. And this is the path to develop unconditional love towards ourselves in order to have a coherent view of reality, and so on. Everyone has their own path. And amongst these, this is the only one that I know where we actually have a physical map. in the sense of usually we talk about our own process to reach enlightenment. It's called the 5 paths that are actually 5 objectives of a same path. That is traditionally called the path of accumulation, of preparation, of the vision, of meditation or familiarization, and the path of not learning anymore. One small detail. In order to go from one objective to the other, the only tool that we have in order to go from one to the other is the samadhi, which is the meditative state. So, if one is not able to develop samadhi, this meditative state of shamatha, so calm abiding, etc., it's not possible to go from, for instance, the accumulation path to the preparation path. So, this is why it's so important, meditation in itself, this state of meditative state. And this terminology of path, we can find it in many places, and it's very important because it shows us that when we have a path, it means that we have a point where we are starting, there is a point of arrival, and then we have some steps that I can follow in order to go from where I am to where I want to arrive. This is very important, otherwise we stay there waiting for something to happen in order for us to reach that final point. But actually it's one step after the other. And when we talk about developing shine or calm abiding, this is the only that I know where we have a physical map, original physical map, which is the one that we are projecting here. And of course, a map works if we know how to read it. So what I wanted to do and see with you, without entering into too much detail, because I don't think it's the right moment to do this, it's to go and see this, because our tendency is, okay, we see it and we say, ah, nice. We are a bit attracted to it. Some may say, ah, no, yes, this is the path to develop a meditative state, but actually what each part represents, we don't know, but it's actually easier than what we might think. But I need to correct myself on a point. We have also other graphical and physical maps, but they don't seem as a map. This actually seems a map. For instance, a mandala is a map. So the mandala shows us a path that we need to follow. And when we did the teachings on self-healing, we talked about this. For instance, if we look here in the temple, the temple is made as a mandala, so the external part we see near the wall, we see that there is this circle, this circle made of petals. Then we have the vajra, a circle of vajras, and this has different meanings. For example, in order to enter in the mandala, the first thing we need to do, we need to overcome the finish line of overcoming our egoism and our ignorance. So the basis, in order to enter a mandala, the first prerequisite is to love oneself, loving others, and having a coherent view of reality. On the other hand, it represents that the mandala is protected, so the practice inside is protected by this love for oneself and the others and this coherent view of reality. So this is what keeps together the Tantra practice. If this falls, everything else falls. So to me, it's like I imagine it as if it were many, let's say, mountains, and we need to overcome them. And once we arrive on the other side of the mountains, they are like a barrier, so a protection. So, for instance, this is another kind of map. And some mandalas on the outside have the cemeteries, the 8 cemeteries, showing that in the path we need to have the part of recognizing suffering and the causes of suffering and wanting to abandon them. So there is a whole symbology and symbolism that if one can recognize it, then we can read the map. If we're not able to recognize these symbols, we just see the mandala, we say, ah, it's nice, but it's not a map. So similarly, this drawing that we have here, which is called Shineperi, which means peri. So it's like, it's the drawing of the example of the process to reach shamatha or shine, the calm abiding. And it's a map, but it's easier as a symbology rather than a mandala to understand. Once we did a version for kids of this drawing, in some way, anyways, it's easier to understand. So let's do one thing. Let's try to understand a bit better this drawing.
Qualcuno mi presta un'immagine, così almeno riesco a vedere.
If someone can give me an image of this drawing.
Va bene, grazie.
Thank you.
Ok, tanto tu puoi guardare qua su. Ok, se noi vediamo, cominciamo dal basso. Prima cosa,
starting from the bottom. So, first of all, the path is uphill. So it means we need some effort. What we can see is that there are some aspects of this drawing that the artist can add, let's say, and other parts are specific of the map.
Partiamo che c'è sempre la casa.
So we start from the house, then we have the practitioner, represented in this case by a monk, we have an elephant, we have a monkey. The elephant represents our own mind. When it's black, it is represented as the mind with this numbness, with this torpor, so without clarity. And the monkey represents the agitation of the mind. How many elephants do we see here?
Ci sono 11 elefanti.
There are 11 elephants. How many are the steps of the path in order to reach the shamatha and calm abiding? 9. It's 9 stages. Why do we have 11 elephants? Because as we said earlier this morning, it's 9 plus 1. So if we start from the bottom, the first 9 elephants represent these first 9 stages. The 10th represents the shamatha, the calm abiding, and the 11th represents lakton or vipassana, the profound view. Those are the different levels to achieve. So we have the practitioner, the elephant that is the mind, black meaning the numbness of the mind, the monkey represents the agitation of the mind, the monkey starts become black in color, and slowly they become whiter, so it means that this numbness and agitation slowly become lesser. And then at a certain point, we have another animal that appears. Can anybody tell me which one? There is a rabbit. It's very small. And it appears on top of the third elephant. And it goes away. So we have it in the third, fourth, and fifth. And in the sixth, the rabbit disappears. The rabbit represents the subtle numbness of the mind. It's something that is there, but you can almost not see it, but it's there, and we need to be careful. So, as we can see in the beginning, we have some fires in the bottom. So the first fire is represented on the lower left side of the drawing. Then after, we have again, slowly, and it goes up until up until the last curve. And it represents how much effort we need to put in the path. So the fire is bigger in the beginning, and then it reduces its flame. So this is the effort we need to put in the path. And we have 5 different moments of this fire. Then we have the conch, lower right. Then we have the plates, plates that make sound. We have a mirror, some texture and some textile, and then we have some fruit. The conch is in the beginning, lower right side of the image, which is open, directed upwards. And then after the first turn, we have some fruit. We have this represented by these 3, let's say, circles, is white, yellow, and green. When we did it for the kids, we put some real fruit, so also a hamburger actually. But the point is, this is how fruit is represented here. Then we have the symbols, the music represented by these 2 plates. Then we have a mirror. It's a Tibetan mirror with a golden decoration. And then we have some textiles, and they represent the 5 senses that distract the mind, especially when we're in the beginning, that takes us out from the object of meditation. So from our smell, because the conch represents the smell. Because originally, they used to put some perfume inside the conch, so this is why it represents that. Then we have the food, we have the sound, we have the physical aspect, so the image, the form, and the touch. So we have the objects of the 5 senses that in this path, while we're going upwards, we have to let them go. We have to let go the attachment to the 5 senses in order to keep our mind focused on the object of meditation. If you remember, we said that amongst the difficulties of the path, there is the attachment to the objects. So this is represented. Usually our mind is attached to the objects of the 5 senses. So this is represented in this way. And someone may say, maybe the easiest is the smell, then there is the sound, then there is... No, wait. First we have the smell, then we have the food, then the sound, then the form, and then lastly the touch. And one may say, but I'm not so attached to the touch. But for instance, sexual pleasure is part of one of these objects of the touch. Amongst our attachment, we have attachment to our image, for example, or attachment to things that have been said, or attachment to the food, attachment to the smell. Other symbols that we have here, let's see. It's not very clear in the image, but the practitioner has in his hand a hook, and the rope. So they represent the 2 antidotes to numbness and mental agitation, and we will explain them later on. If you can see, on the top of the image we have an orange tree. We cannot see it very well because it's very small in this image, but here in the tree there is a small monkey. And usually, on top of this tree, we have a monkey that is taking a fruit. And this monkey, this tree is not just there, it's not a decoration of the artist. And it's not even the monkey that disappears at a certain point, that started black and became white. What this means is that when we arrive to a certain level, that the mind is able to stay concentrated and in the object of meditation without a lot of effort. We're able to stay there. We have the risk of wanting to stay there, not doing anything else but meditating. So generally, the monkey represents the agitation. So here, this monkey is small, so it means it's a small distraction, and it's eating a fruit. It means that it's eating something good, which is the result of this state of meditative concentration. But you still have to sustain some activities that are different from the meditation, but that can bring very good results. For instance, teaching Dharma, helping people, doing things that are virtuous beyond the context of meditation.
Ok, adesso vediamo, facciamo vedere se ho mancato qualcosa.
Let's see if I missed something.
No, mi sa che qua abbiamo tutto.
I think we said everything, we covered everything. We could also add something else, which is not part of the main symbology, but there is the representation of water as well. On the right, we have like...
E viene rappresentato l'acqua come i 4 tipi di sforzo, come il tipo di energia che va messa.
And it represents the effort, the energy that we need to put in order to develop this meditative concentration. So we have this waterfall on the lower left part of the image, and we have this image
non so se è esattamente la cascata.
I don't know if it's actually a waterfall, but in the beginning, when someone is starting to practice, it said that one needs to enter in the meditation putting effort. It's not something that comes spontaneously. We need to put a lot of effort, and if I remember correctly, it's represented by this waterfall. There's a lot of intensity, a lot of effort, and after this, it's represented by the water inside of a river. So we have some moments where the water is flowing and some moments where it's more still. Then it starts going again and it stays still again. And this represents the moment where one goes there to meditate and puts some effort and is able to stay in the object of meditation, then it goes out of it, then it goes back into it, goes out of it, etc. And then we have a continuous flow of water. And lastly, we have this representation of a calm lake, where there is a continuous flow. Sorry, when we have the continuous flow, this means that we're able to stay in meditation without getting out of the object of concentration, and in the end, we have this lake, meaning that the mind stays calm inside the object of meditation without putting effort. So this is why the calm lake. So this is why we have on the right we have this symbology of the water, and we can add this as well. Adding something else, we have, for instance, the sun and moon, method and wisdom, the masculine and feminine energy, love and compassion, correct view of reality. These always accompany every kind of path, and they are represented by the moon and the sun. So now let's see the path in itself. So first of all,
partiamo dall'inizio sotto. Il praticante è uscito di casa.
Let's start from the beginning. So the practitioner got out of his house. So if you can see, the door is open of this house. So he's not inside. This means that one needs to go a bit out of one's own comfort zone. What we are used to, what is our habits. So we have to go out of our own normality, because our daily life is based on agitation or mental numbness or tiredness, thinking of many things, and we are used to jump from one place to the other within our brain and thoughts. And not only this, we're also used to have our mind constantly directed towards external objects. Also inner objects like our memories of the past, but it's usually also directed to external objects. So for instance, what happened to me in the past is an external object. So what we need to do is we need to redirect our focus innerly. And this already is going out of the norm, getting out of our comfort zone, getting out of this attention directed towards the five senses. So here, for example, we have the house with 4 windows and a door that represents the 5 senses. The house in itself is the person, life, habits, and the 5 senses are those through which we interact with the world. In this representation, there are many more windows. I don't know why, but it should be this. So here, the practitioner gets out of his house and starts the path. When the practitioner starts the path, in the beginning, what happens is, okay, we are in the first level, which is called
Dove siamo? Abbiamo il semjoppa, il porre la mente.
We have the putting the mind. So putting the mind on the object. And this is represented by the first elephant, which is black, representing that mental numbness is present, mental agitation is present, and we're running behind it. So the practitioner is behind the mind, not in front of it. So what happens is one tries to direct the mind, but who actually gives direction to the mind is our agitation. Because who is in front of everybody? The monkey. So this is the first level. And something that is very comforting to me of this image is that, okay, at least I can find where I am on this path. Okay, I'm out of the house. And I want to follow a path. It's not easy, etc. But, you know, usually maps have this circle within written, you are here. Okay, great, we can do this here as well. And we can say, good, I'm here. This is my position. So this means that we are driven by our mental agitation in our first step. So let me check one thing.
Se noi vediamo il praticante in mano porta
due cose. The practitioner has something in his hand. So he has a hook and a rope. The hook represents vigilance and the rope represents memory, the object of meditation. That in that moment, they are 2 tools that we have, but we are not able to use yet. Not very well, at least, because the elephant and the monkey are in front of him. So this represents the first level where we are sitting down to meditate. And what is the principal action that we do? We choose an object of meditation and we choose to affix, to point our mind on that object. We can use 2 objects as a reference, even if any object can be an object of meditation. Masters say choose an object that is neutral or virtuous, and don't change the object. So when we reached the final state, then we can change the object of meditation. But in the process of training for meditative concentration, it's better to not change the object of meditation. So we can use, for instance, the painting of the face of the Buddha, or for some people it's more difficult to have a visual imagination. So we can also concentrate on the feeling of the air that goes in and out of our nostrils for those that have more difficulty with visualizing. So this is the step where we chose, okay, I want to meditate, I take my attention and I take it back, put it back on the object of meditation that we chose. But what happens is, it's much more the time that we spend during this process trying to meditate. And it's much more the time that our mind is taken away by our agitation, and the tendency is, if it's not in agitation, the tendency is to go back to the cloudiness of the mind, to this numbness of the mind, rather than the time that we spend with the mind concentrated on the object of meditation. So here is the first animal, the elephant. Beneath it, I think these are representations of offerings, and I think these are something that the artist added. Usually when we do sacred images, we put some offerings at the basis of the drawing. As we can see, there are some jewels, we have some gold, and in theory they represent objects of offering. It's like someone drawing a map and then putting some flowers in it. It's a decoration and also has other meanings. But so here we have the first level with the first elephant. When we arrive to the second elephant, second step, what can we see here? In the second level, what we see is that here is not represented very well, but the rope is able to get close to the elephant, and the head of the elephant and the monkey start becoming white. As you can see, they have a small white part on the head. This represents the second step. That is called to put continuously the attention of the mind on the object of meditation. So keeping the same mind on the object in a continuous way without distractions. So we are able to keep the mind, at least for a while, on the object. It's not that we're there easily. The rope is not just there as a tool, but is also able to reach the elephant somehow, but is not able to keep him. So what happens is, I'm able to keep the mind on the object of meditation for some small periods of times, but I'm far away of having control over my mind. I'm still behind it. Who is directing, first of all, is the conditioning of mental agitation, because at the end of the day, this path is a path of transformation of our own habits. It's a process of changing our habits. We are used today to our mind jumping from one thought to the other. So we need to change this. It's not that we are subdued by this monster of mental agitation represented by a monkey. It's a habit that we have. And they found this symbology to represent it of the monkey. So we are conditioned by our own habits, and amongst these is the mind that never stops. So this is the second level. Moving forward, we have the third. And the third, as we can see, the elephant became whiter, the monkey as well. The monkey is closer to the elephant, is not so far away, guiding completely. And then it appears on top of the elephant, this rabbit. And the practitioner is also closer to the animals than before. This is the moment where the mind goes towards the external part. So when the mind distracts itself, we are able to bring it back with much more easily, let's say. So we're able to put the mind on the object, but it still gets distracted. But when it is distracted, we are able to bring it back. So this is the point. And at the same time, the monkey is not the one that is leading so much. In questo momento At this point, the monk holds the elephant that is looking towards him. So the mind starts reacting, starts answering, and then we have the rabbit that arises. And earlier, the animals all looked in front of them. But I don't think that we can see it very much on this image specifically, but the rope should be attached to the elephant and the elephant looking backwards. So it means that the mind is answering back to the direction that we want to give it. We are not completely in control, but we have less numbness, less agitation. One is able to stay more in the object. And we have the rabbit that represents the subtle numbness. So it starts the part where we have those moments where the practitioner is able to keep the mind on the object. There is clarity, but at the same time there's no intensity. Something is missing there. This is called subtle numbness, that is represented here by the rabbit. Moving forward, as we can see, the monk gets closer and closer to the elephant. So we have the fourth step. The elephant becomes whiter, the rope is still attached. We have the rabbit that is very clear. So what happens here is the rope is still very brim. Is stretched tight. It's very tight in this moment, the rope. What does it mean? That I need to pull the mind to stay on the object, because the rope represents vigilance. So as we said, we need to use effort of memory in order to keep the elephant. But the elephant is more calm, as well as the monkey, and they're getting closer to the monk. And after this, we have the next level, and here already we have a big change. The practitioner is in front of the animals, and the elephant is behind him. So in the fifth level, what happens is the monk is guiding the elephant and the monkey is following without pulling anymore, and then the rabbit becomes smaller. So the fifth level is the level where
Io non ho mai memorizzato I nomi di questi.
I never memorized the names.
Il quinto livello
So the fifth level we have
perché prima siamo passati dal
the taming. So the first level was putting the mind, then putting the mind continuously,
o fare rattoppi, e poi porre da vicino, porre da vicino.
Then we have the put it back on, then putting it closer, where we don't have any more dispersion towards the external, so without distractions anymore, but with a lot of effort. And then the fifth level, when the monk goes in front, it's called the taming the mind. So we are able to have some control over our mind. So contemplating the qualities of samadhi and rejoicing of the meditative state, because we can see the qualities of it, the mind gets tamed in the samadhi. With vigilance, we recognize and overcome the gross numbness of the mind. So this is the moment where one not only where one can feel the joy of the practice. So we have the fifth point where there's no gross numbness and the mental agitation is reduced. We are able to keep the mind on the object. And for this reason, we find ourselves in front of the elephant. In the next and sixth step, the monkey stays behind, or actually already it was behind in the fifth level. And what does it mean? that it means that she's not leading anymore. So the practitioner is not led by this inner sensation of needing something else, some sort of
che se noi vediamo agli inizi è proprio davanti a tutti, lontana, molto
uneasiness because of this desire and unsatisfaction that we can see that in the beginning is very strong. So gradually it calms down and then it becomes, as we can see here, at the 6th level, actually 5th, it steps back, and in the 6th level she sits down. And when the monkey becomes white and sits down, it means that the mental agitation stops. So we still have some numbness because the elephant is still slightly black. The practitioner goes in front of it. The rope is not so tight anymore, so we don't need to put so much effort in order to keep our mind concentrated on the object. And so this is reaching the 5th and 6th level when we are able to pacify. So one completely overcomes the mind of agitation, the part of mental agitation on a gross level, and so the monkey is sitting down. The 7th point, we have pacifying completely. The 8th step is the state of unidirectional concentration, and the 9th is being in balance. The 7th is called pacifying completely, when it's pacified the attachment, the uneasiness, the aversion, the tiredness, the mental closure. All these things are pacified, but when they arise just slightly, and we are able to pacify them as soon as they arise. This is the 7th level. The 8th level is the state of unidirectional concentration. To apply, it's the level where we start to create a habit of staying inside the meditation. Yes, we need to put effort, but we start going with more naturality. We put effort with discipline, and we obtain great results with just a small initial effort. And this is the 8th level, where we can see the last, where the practitioner is still standing up in front of the elephant, where we put a small effort in the beginning, and then we are able to stay in this meditative state without interruptions. The 9th state is when the monk is sitting down next to the elephant. It's called the state of... Here the translation is terrible, but it's the place in balance. To put oneself in balance. So in samadhi, in meditative concentration, and because of having familiarity with the 8th level, we obtain the mastery of the object of concentration without any of the 5 defects. So going back to the symbolism, in the 5th level, the monk went in front of the animals. In the 6th, the monkey let go and sits down, which means that the mind of the agitated mind on a gross level stops. The white elephant, the elephant is almost completely white, and the rope is not tight. On the 6th level, the rabbit goes away, so the subtle numbness of the mind goes away.
In alto abbiamo il primo in alto, il coniglio non c'è più. La scimmia ormai era
then the monkey already stayed behind, and the monkey follows alone and is almost completely white. And we almost don't need the rope anymore, because naturally it follows, so we don't need anymore to pull with a part of memory and vigilance. We use it less and less. At the 8th stage, the elephant is completely white, following the monk without the rope, and the monkey completely disappeared. The 8th. There is a monkey in the tree, but it's not the same monkey, it seems. But what happens is that the monkey in the tree represents that when someone reaches the state of meditative concentration, being able without effort to stay there, and it's also pleasurable, there is this risk of wanting to do only that. And the monkey in the tree says some other activities that is not meditation, of course virtuous actions, because the monkey is eating a fruit, so it means good results, good fruits. So it's a symbology, the fruit represents a symbology of the result. So activities that can bring positive and virtuous results. So not only to meditate, it's important not only to meditate, but also to do positive actions that bring good results. So we have the 8th level when we need just a small effort in order for the mind to follow. We don't need the rope anymore. The elephant follows, and it's completely whitened. And then the 9th, the monk is sitting in meditation. The element rests beside him, and there is no flames anymore. Then, in the end, we don't have any more flames. It means we don't need to put any more effort. The monk is sitting down and the mind is sitting together with him. So this represents when someone spontaneously is able to put the mind in the state of meditation. So the mind stays in the object of meditation with presence, with clarity, with intensity, without numbness, without agitation. And one is able to stay in this for as long as he wants without putting so much effort, because he or she reached such a level of familiarity. This is still yet not the final result. From this, we have the monk that is flying. And the monk that is flying represents the reaching a state of bliss, which is a result of achieving flexibility of both mind and body. So the flexibility is when the habit becomes so strong that we are able to generate this sense of bliss within the meditation that brings positive results to the mind and the body. So this is represented by the monk flying, so within this state of bliss. And then, lastly, on the rainbow, we have the monk sitting on the elephant, flying away, and it represents the meditative state called shamatha, where the mind is on an object, is able to stay there, and we can choose which kind of object, so the mind stays on this meditative object without numbness or agitation. We don't have to control the mind anymore. And what happens is, in the path, what is interesting, in the beginning, it's as if in the beginning we have to fight with ourselves. It's like running behind the elephant, trying to catch him with a rope, with a hook, and then the rope is very tight. And then slowly, the rope becomes less tight. And then we don't need to have the rope anymore. And in the end, we go together in harmony. So this represents this moment where in the beginning, of course, it's difficult. We need to put a lot of effort. We need to control the mind, bringing it back to the object. And then slowly, we don't need to do this anymore. The mind is able to stay there where we want to, without numbness, without agitation, without needing to put an effort. It's spontaneous. And not only that, but it generates by itself a pleasurable sensation for both our body and mind. So this is called the shamatha state. And if you can see, if you go and see, there is the practitioner sitting on the elephant with the hand in this with this mudra. Here it's very small and I cannot see it. I don't know if you can see it, but he has a sword in his hand. And if you can see, there are some two rays of light that connect to his heart. So he goes on the rainbow, and then there are two rays of light connecting to his heart. And there's also a fire there. But here the fire doesn't represent the effort. Here it represents the wisdom of discernment. So the wisdom that burns ignorance, the sword of wisdom that cuts ignorance, and this is called the state of vipassana. And here, to understand, without entering into too much detail, when one enters the state of shamatha, of meditative concentration, which already is wonderful, the meditative state in itself, and just for itself, it's wonderful, but it's not enough in order to eliminate our mental defilements. We learned how to drive, but now we need to go somewhere. If we remember, meditating means familiarizing, so when we reach that state, one has mastered the ability of concentration in meditation. But now, it depends on what do I choose as where to put my mind in a unidirectional way, where I want to familiarize myself. And there are many possibilities. The best one is the correct view of reality. The correct view of reality is the inner state that directly opposes to the mind that grasps to reality of ourselves and others, of phenomena, as if they existed in an autonomous, independent, and objective way. And this is called realizing emptiness in some cases, which is not a topic that we will open right now. But it's the mind that realizes, that cuts the root of ignorance, that is grasping to reality as if it existed in an autonomous way. So what happens is that when we reach this state of meditative concentration, of shamatha, we have the ability of fixing our mind on one point. But we need to do a further step, which is uniting the unidirectional concentration with the analysis. And it requires a lot of effort in the beginning. So from the elephant that is there sitting with the monk with the rainbow, to arrive to the monk with the sword, we need to go through the other 9 steps again. So in the beginning it's difficult, then we are able to do it for more time, then we are able slowly to make it more spontaneous, etc., etc. So we need to do all this path again. But what happens here is trying to uniting the mind that is able to stay fixed on an object and the mind that is able to comprehend it, to analyze it, to observe it. So it is described from Panchen Losang Chogi Gyatsen, when one arrives at shamatha, this calm abiding, it's like a lake. The mind becomes like a lake, calm, still, transparent. The water is transparent, we can see everything, but it's calm. Vipassana, the profound view, is like a small fish that swims in the lake, and it's like making him swim as if he is observing the whole lake without making the water move on the surface. So there's a part of the mind that stays completely focused on the object of meditation, emptiness of intrinsic existence, and another part of the mind that starts analyzing why is it empty of intrinsic existence. So reflecting on interdependence, trying to observe and comprehend this, these two together, they develop greatly our ability of familiarization. It's like taking the example of the book that we did. From one side, we are able to keep concentration on the book, and the other part of the mind, while I'm observing it, keeps analyzing and going into much more depth, looking at the details. And doing these two together is the most powerful thing there is in order to deepen and familiarize with the object. So in order to generate this wisdom, this inner state that is able to cut our ignorance, this wisdom, this wisdom of discernment is the mind that is able to see that reality that appears as if it is autonomous and objective. It's not like this, but at the same time it sees that it's interdependent. So why it's not as it appears to me? Because it depends on the imputation of the name, etc. So the mind that stops and on the object, that it's not, reality is not as if it appears, this is shamatha, so it stays still on the object. And another part analyzes and says, okay, but why it doesn't exist as it appears? Because it's interdependent. It depends on causes, conditions, on its parts, on the imputation of the name, and we go deeper and deeper to analyze the object. In the beginning, it's two separate things. And one puts some, it's difficult to put them together. Then, when the two become as if they're one, so one naturally, when goes to meditate on the emptiness, is not just unidirectional, but there is also the analysis and this process to stay on the meditation, on the object of meditation, and analyzing it together in this state. And this state generates a bliss both for the body and the mind without putting any more effort. Then this is called vipassana. Translated, Lakton in Tibetan, profound view. And this is the tool, the most powerful tool that it exists in order to cut the mental defilements. The two rays from the heart represent, is as if one frees himself from the two obstructions at the heart. So at our heart we have two obstructions that block us and makes us suffer, which is the obstruction of mental defilements and the obstruction to omniscience. If we go and see what is the cause of suffering, we can find these two obstructions, which in technical terms would be grasping to intrinsic existence, the obstruction of mental defilements, and appearance of intrinsic existence is the obstruction to omniscience. So this is something that in the representation here on the drawing, where we have these two rays of light. Let me check if I missed something. The fire is also the burning sword. It's what cuts the ignorance, that burns the root of ignorance, that cuts it. So if we see the drawing and we start from where we are right now and we arrive as an objective to the two rainbows, this is reaching the state of Buddhahood. So eliminating completely the causes of our own suffering. This is what we have in our path. I wanted also to explain something else that maybe to some this means a lot, to some it may not mean much. Don't worry, it's more a technical thing, but I would like to add this briefly. We cited earlier the 5 paths of accumulation, of preparation, of vision, of familiarization, and then not learning anymore. These are the objectives until enlightenment, starting from where we are right now. And these are explained in very much detail. The first level, one reaches the path of accumulation when we develop a profound love for ourselves and love towards others. This is the basis to enter the so-called bodhicitta. At this point, the practitioner is in a state where he enters in meditation, and all the part of the path here, represented here, until reaching the state of shamatha, is part of the path of accumulation. So in the path of accumulation, one develops what is called wisdom of meditation, where we're able to keep the mind unidirectionally on the meaning of emptiness of intrinsic existence, but which is not a direct experience. The object of meditation is a mental object, is an image, a mental image of what we believe being emptiness of intrinsic existence. When one is able to unite shamatha and vipassana, and we are able to develop a profound view on the correct view of reality, one has entered in the path of preparation. So from the path of accumulation to preparation is going from shamatha to vipassana. And in this state, we start an experience of repeating a meditation many times until it's not anymore a conceptual process, but it becomes a direct experience. When we have a direct experience of a non-conceptual perception of the nature of phenomena, this is called the path of the vision. Once we reached this, good news, we got out of samsara. There's no space for suffering, for mental defilements, etc. But amongst the two obstructions, the obstruction of mental defilements, we don't have this. So we don't have a grasping to reality as if it existed inherently. But reality still appears as if it were of inherent existence. And one here should familiarize not with the concept, but with the experience of emptiness of intrinsic existence. For many times, it's called the path of meditation or familiarization, until we are able to eliminate not only the grasping to a reality as it appears, but the appearance in itself. So reality doesn't appear anymore as if it were autonomous, independent, and objective. And this is when one has reached the path of no more learning. What allows this path to happen is shamatha. We start from here because all the path that comes after it comes within us, inside of us, not out of us. So this is what this map is giving us, is how to do so that we can be able to take the lead of our mind, saying, okay, I want to direct my mind. Then I will always need to develop love, patience, compassion, generosity, until realizing wisdom. Because what is represented here with the monk with the sword in the hand is like, okay, once you have the car and you're able to drive, then you need to go to your main finish line, main goal. So you don't stop in the middle. So you take that ability of concentration and you develop the main thing that destroys our mental defilements. Then there are many other things that we can do. So this is to give an overview that this image is a map that shows us where we are, where I am right now, where we can arrive, and where this method can bring us. So where we are, the method, and the result, those two rainbows from the heart. I know that for us is something that is very far away, and to some it may discourage you, saying, Lama, look, I came here just to meditate a bit. All these complications, all these terminologies, and here and there, I just want to calm my mind. I don't want to take any more pills for my anxiety. I want to feel good. On one side, this is great.
quando noi riusciamo
when we're able to
degli strumenti interni per i nostri
have some inner tools for our needs,
ci va.
it's really something that gives us strength and makes us grow.
Quindi, per esempio,
For instance,
il fatto che noi
the
molto
fact that
spesso
usually we
sperimentiamo ansia, lamenti,
live
inquietudine,
anxiety
è perché
and all of this is why? Because of our lifestyle, because of our habits, mental habits, because of all of many things that are not really working in our life. It's possible to invert this direction, yes, but in order to do this, we need to get out of the house, the first part.
e nell'uscire di casa
And getting out of the house, what does it mean? It means changing our lifestyle.
dobbiamo creare
We
le
need to
condizioni
create
favorevoli.
favorable conditions. We need to have less stimuli, less distractions, less aversion, less attachment,
Riuscire a avere più
being
consapevolezza
able to have more presence and awareness, being more aware on how we eat, how we sleep, and not just what I eat, but also how much and how I eat.
per esempio all'epoca di
For
Buddha
example, in Buddha's time, Buddha and his disciples,
praticamente non mangiavano
basically,
mai dopo pranzo.
they were never eating after lunch, for example, at night.
C'erano certe
And there were
spiegazioni
some explanations that are a bit more practical, saying the
della mendicanza.
monastic monks were living based on begging for food, so they were like beggars.
Una volta al giorno vuol dire
And by eating just
pesare di meno sugli altri.
once a day, this means having less weight on the others, on other people.
Meditare bene.
But also, in order to meditate better and wake up better the next morning, it's better not to eat in the evening.
C'è il fatto di dormire,
And then there is the part of sleeping that refers to
non dormire nella prima parte della
not sleeping at the first
tramonto, andare a dormire
part of the night, going at sleep at least 2 hours after sundown, and waking up 2 hours before sunrise. Everything that we saw around this part of preparation.
creare le
So creating the conditions
parte di quel
is part of this movement of getting out of the house.
e qua addirittura c'è
And
riuscire
here,
a saltare il ruscello.
not only here, there's also the part of jumping from on top of the river, because it's an act of courage. It's not something simple.
Questo riporta un fatto
And this takes us back to an important point for every one of us, that is, we are made of habits.
E quello di cui noi stiamo parlando
And what we're talking about here, all this path, is about changing our own habits, inverting our habits,
stiamo parlando di
going in the opposite direction. But we're talking about one of the deepest habits that we have, which is our way of thinking.
una volta che è diventato un'abitudine
Once that this has become a habit, what does it mean to reach shamatha and calm abiding? It means to create a habit that is so strong that it becomes spontaneous. Today, our habit is that our mind jumps from one thing to the other. And here, it's our mind is able to stay where we want it to stay without effort.
io parlavo
I was talking
con un'amica che ha
with a
fatto
friend
l'esperienza
that
di fare 10 giorni di
did this
meditazione.
experience of 10-day Vipassana meditation.
Quando si parla, no, esistono i centri di
And
Vipassana,
there are some centers of Vipassana. I don't know them very well in order to
spiegare che
explain what they intend for Vipassana, if it's the same thing that we are talking about here. But this is not the point. The point is that she told me that doing 10 days where you can do anything else but sitting down in silence without reading, writing, talking. You can eat just breakfast and lunch,
passi gran parte
and you spend
del giorno,
the majority of the day sitting down.
ti alzi a un certo
If you get up at a certain point to go to the restroom, after 3 minutes someone comes and to collect you and to take you back. You cannot move while you're sitting down.
le persone che
And people that did this, some with whom I spoke to, said was a torture.
una fatica,
It was an enormous effort.
ma gli ultimi dopo il
But
sesto,
after the 6th, 7th day, it was extremely pleasurable.
sono uscito da lì che
She said, I got out of there that my senses were clearer. I was experiencing things that Before, I did not notice. My five senses completely exploded, and a mental clarity that I never had. Of course, once this ends, if you don't maintain it, don't keep it, you should actually keep it and maintain it at least 2 hours a day to keep this sensation. So this is exactly what it is. In the beginning is going against our habits, and when we enter in there, then slowly it becomes pleasurable. The staying there, not having thoughts going from one place to another. Because imagine how much energy we consume with thoughts that are completely useless.
Tanto.
A lot. How much time of our life we consume re-seeing the past when it's not necessary, imagining the future when there's no need for it. Because one thing is, okay, with awareness, I want to see what happened of the past in order to learn and not repeat it anymore. But another thing is the mind that goes back to it without control. The mind that is in a loop, in an obsessive way on different topics. And if we see in our modern times, one of the biggest crises of health around us is a mental health issue. The level of and the quantity of people that have issues to sleep, of anxiety, of depression, and more young people are finding themselves in this situation. Do you recognize it? Do you see it? For example, when I was a kid, maybe nobody talked to me about it, but I don't remember of kids being depressed. It was something about adults. Kids are joyous. It's like they don't care. But more and more, we have these levels of less resilience, more emotional fragility. And this comes from our lifestyle that brings us to this. So, even if we don't follow a deep path of meditation to develop the calm abiding, at least getting out of the house, saying, okay, I can have my mind in my own hands, at least putting a small rope on the elephant. Some influence I can have, but with small effort we can do a lot. And as we saw in the beginning, it's not just a matter of having the right technique. It's a matter of lifestyle. And Lama Tsongkhapa in the Lamrim Chenmo describes that if we try to develop shamatha, if we do it without building a basis with the favorable conditions, we will not be able to do it. And here is an invite to see some aspects of our own lifestyle. I have a sensation sometimes that I remember when with the computer, sometimes happens that sometimes the computer starts getting slower, doesn't work well, and then if you go and see, there is like a program that maybe is consuming too much memory, or it's like it's completely clogged and you're not able to do the basic things. And we, at the same way, are clogged by so much information that it's crazy. And the most powerful tool that we have in our life is our own mind. So here there is a path in order to learn how to use it. I don't know. When we were born, nobody gave us a manual on how to use our body and mind. And here we have it. We have this manual in order to develop our potential, our inner potential. And in order to do this, the first thing is reducing distraction and bringing us back to the present moment. then there's a whole part where I didn't enter into too much detail. I don't give it so much importance, but to some people, they like this very much, which is that one of the positive results of developing shamatha, calm abiding, is the ability to obtain the different kinds of clairvoyances. So the ability to listen the mind of someone else. I would never want that. Words are enough. Or no? From one side, one says, ah, wow, it would be nice to read the mind of the other. But imagine what it would be listening to the mind of the other without saying, please switch off. It would be extremely chaotic if we're not able to manage it. Then we have clairvoyance of knowing what is far away, what is present far away, etc. And we need these clairvoyances in the path of the Bodhisattva because if we want to help someone, it's important to know your language. So, and there's no better way to learn your language than to understand your thoughts. And then through meditative concentration, one can learn to move the inner pranas or winds, or we can learn to have some sort of control on the elements. And here we have techniques that were developed, like in Tibet there was this technique called Kangyur, which means fast foot. There were some practitioners that in order to, and to some they were given this role to practice this because they were like the postmen of the time, because in Tibet there were a lot of mountains and to go from one place to the other, not even the horse could do it. So there was this technique called the fast and light foot, that in order to develop it, one needs to develop shamatha first, because it's about something of directing the pranas and the winds in order to do this. If we see in the martial arts as well, in order to use correctly our own energy, we need a state of evolved concentration, and so on, for infinite other things. But the principal use is to overcome our own mental defilements and to develop our inner qualities and to reach a state of peace. And because the cause of our suffering is something that comes from within, the solution can only come from within. It's useful to go to a beautiful sacred place, yes. Is it useful to stay with nice friends, nice people? Yes. Is it useful coming to the center, doing the teachings, etc.? Yes. But the only true solution, the only true tool to solve our own mental defilements is inside of us. All these external things help us to create conditions in order to develop these inner qualities. I say all of this because some may say, no, Lama, all of this is difficult, huh? The answer is yes. But it's exactly why it's difficult that we need to develop faith, aspiration. And one of the most important things in order to have aspiration to meditate is being able to ask ourselves, am I able to do this or no? If we look at this map and we can imagine ourselves already out of the house, okay, we have a long path in front of us, but at least the first step I did it. So I can allow myself to do this path slowly. So there's a part of self-trust, of believing in ourselves, in our ability to follow this path. And this is something that is very important. This path, in order to do it well, there are what we called the 4 forces and the 4 attentions. We can see it quickly just to follow all of this. So when we start, the first force that helps us is the power of listening. So what we are doing right now. So I go there, I repeat things many times, 25 times, in every possible way. One listens to it and said, okay, yeah, maybe it has some sense. It would be nice. Look, I look at the map, I see, okay, I am here, I understood more or less what happens here. Then going into depths of all the stages is something that slowly one should do more and more, understanding the various steps that are there, but at least we have an overview. So we understood what is the result, the finish line. We are in this phase called the power of listening. And this is what we need in order to do the first step. And in the first step, even if it seems small, actually is huge, because it's also the most difficult, because it's choosing to go against our own habits. It's deciding to get out of our own comfort zone. It means giving ourselves a direction, changing paradigm. The direction is modified. And this is exactly what we're doing, because I'm convinced that there are many people that if we go to speak to and say, here in summer I took 4 days to stay sitting down listening to an explanation about a black elephant, because the meditation and calm abiding, and someone would say, you're crazy. Go to the lake, go walk in the mountains, do something else, do something more fun. Why you're doing this? Okay, so there's a strange thing in all of this, in the sense that it's difficult to put into words. When one gets out of the house, it's like a whole new world opens up that we were not able to see before, and we say, oh wow, I want to arrive there. And it comes to my mind when, for example, there's people here living here for many years, and they don't even know about the existence of a waterfall that we have here near us. It's like not even 10 minutes walk from here. And it's a bit like this. It's like when we recognize that something exists, for instance, if we go to the waterfall one time, it's like a whole new world opens up, and it's like we didn't even know it existed. So when one gets out of their homes, it's like we're closed in our reality, in our things, and then we open up the door and we see a whole new world outside that is wonderful. But this getting out of the house, it's some sort of magic. Opening up to the Dharma, opening up to a spiritual path that is deep and sincere, requires some magic, in the sense that it's like falling in love. Is like something that either it's there or it's not there. Everybody can experience this, but when it's there, it's like, wow, the whole world changes colors. Then, unfortunately, in some cases, some people, it happens rarely. Unfortunately, this switches off. And at this point, then the world goes back to black and white, and then putting back colors is more difficult. But this first step, actually, we are already doing. In many cases, we already did it. We got out of our own normality. We got out of our norm, where our objective of life is to gain more and more, having more success, power, fame, pleasures, controlling the world around us, ensuring that things are as we want them to be. So in partially we got out of it. Partially we're still trapped into this. For example, saying, I'll get out a bit, we look at the world, then go back in our house. Okay, but at least we saw it, and already this is huge. So this first step is the most difficult one. And it's even more difficult because it requires causes and conditions that are very difficult to obtain. Buddha Shakyamuni describes it as a turtle that lives under the ocean, in the depths of the ocean, and this turtle goes out to take some air just once every 100 years. Turtles have very long lifespan. And she gets out to get some air once every 100 years. And the turtle is both blind and cannot hear. And on the top of the ocean, there is a golden boa. And so the probability of being where we are right now is the same probability of this turtle getting inside of this golden boa. So the conditions that we need is, first of all, having the minimum materially that we need in order to survive as a condition to practice Dharma. The second point is having a correct person that guides us in the path, and having the desire to follow the path, to walk in the path. So these are the causes and conditions that we need in order to follow Dharma. And in the world, if we look at the world, the majority of people don't have these conditions. Unfortunately, there is an enormous quantity of people that don't even have the minimum that they need in order to survive. Or even if they have, they live in a context of so much uncertainty and risk. For instance, places with wars, etc., that they cannot even use it. Or people that have some conditions in order to survive, but they have such a minimum state where they have to live their whole life just to sustain this minimum state of survival. For example, we saw it with the COVID. For example, in Brazil, I met people that could not work for just a few months and they lost everything. And it was disastrous because there's many people that in order to have that minimum in order to survive, they cannot stop. They don't have this kind of insurance, material insurance. And when one is in this situation, how much inner space do we have to sit down and breathe and observe the mind? Much less. Then there is who has some predispositions for meditation independently from the conditions, but in general, it's much more difficult. Then we have people that have all the conditions, material conditions, but never found a guide, someone that could open their eyes and their mind in order to show them, look, there is something else beyond having money, having pleasures, competing, etc. This is the paradigm, this is the vision. And if we look at the world around us, what is the voice that overcomes on everything else? If you want to be happy, you need to have money, do what you want, when you want, how you want. You need to have success, power, beauty. Or no? Then we have those that have the possibility, but they stay stuck because they don't put the effort to really enter this path, because there is this part in the spiritual path where you need to, at a certain point, look at yourself. And it's enough just to look at who is around us. It's not about judging people. It's not about, we don't know what is happening inside of them. And it's not a matter of who is Buddhist and who is not Buddhist. But amongst the people that we know, allowing ourselves just one moment to judge, even if we don't have the resources to do it, how many are these people that have these three conditions, the minimum we need to survive, to have a guide, and to want to walk in the path? Is it the majority or the minority of the people we know? Is the minority. Is it a big or small minority? It's quite small. And we simply need to multiply this for the rest of the world. So, having these three conditions, this is what represents getting out of the house. and saying, I want to follow this path that is inside of me. Because once you got out of the house, you already put a step into the path. And this already is so huge. And I'm saying this also to encourage us, to say, look, one of the most difficult parts we already did. And now there are the other steps that we need to do, of course. But one of the most difficult steps, we already did it. And in order to continue in the path, the biggest power that we have is the power of listening. So reading, receiving information, learning about this path. In order to enter the second step, this happens through the power of reflection. The more I familiarize with the object of meditation, the more I'm able to keep the mind on the object. So I familiarize with the importance of meditating, with the object itself. So I take the image of the face of the Buddha, I draw it many times until it becomes something that is there, that I'm able to fix it in my mind better. And this is called the power of familiarization, or power of reflection, that is born from repeating multiple times that object. So initially I need the strength to start meditating. Then after I need the strength to create familiarity with the object. So even when I'm not in meditation, I need to repeat many times until that becomes easier. The third power is the one we need in the third and fourth level, is called the power of memory. It means creating such a familiarity with the object that it's easy for us to remember it. It's like the songs, let's say. Once I listened to Baby Shark one time, it was a disaster. It stays there and stays even when you don't want it, then it comes back. I don't listen to music mainly for this reason, because if I listen to music, it needs to be something that don't have the chorus, and there are some instruments that have beautiful songs that don't have the chorus, but my problem is when I listen to music that has this chorus, even when I'm not listening to the song, this comes back to my mind. This is why I don't listen to music. But anyways, this is the power of memory. So I created familiarity with the object, and so it's easier for me to reconnect with the object. So once I'm able to put my mind on the object, in the fifth and sixth stage, I need to use the power of vigilance. So I'm able to keep the mind in the object, but she kind of escapes. So I need to go and get it and bring it back. And this happens through the power of vigilance. Then, when I'm able to overcome this, there is the power of enthusiastic force. The fifth power, at the seventh and eighth level, we don't have any more difficulty in staying there with the mind. But the point is putting strength in order to bring forward this experience until we arrive to a moment that is called the power of complete familiarity. When one reaches the ninth stage, is when we reach the power or force of complete familiarity. So one familiarized so much that it becomes spontaneous and natural. One of the things that I like in all of this is that there is a path. It's not something that it's like, okay, you need to familiarize. No, first you need to understand, start meditating, then you need to start familiarizing with the object, then you need to develop memory, then you need to develop vigilance, then effort, in order to then keep on that without effort through the power of familiarization. But there is...
Prima spiego quest'altro punto, poi lo affrontiamo. Velocemente.
There's a weak point, but first I will explain something else. So we have the 4 attentions that refer to the 4 forms of water that we explained earlier, called the first, entering with a tense attention. The first 2 levels. So the tense attention is when we apply ourselves with a lot of force that is intense and continuous, and it's a lot of effort. This is something important for the beginning. In the beginning, we need to put a lot of effort. In the first 2 levels, the mind is not able to stay in the object if I'm not keeping it there. As soon as I stop putting the mind on the object, she simply goes away. This is why we say in Tibetan, keeping something in a tight way. So I keep the mind through something that is, there is a tension there of keeping the mind in the object. And this is not the objective, but is something that allows us in the beginning For example, it comes to my mind an image. There was a moment where my dog was a puppy. She was very agitated, and there was this exercise that they told me of getting her and keeping her close to me, and she didn't like it. So I was holding her in my arms. So if she was relaxed, you would keep her in a relaxed way in your arms. But if she was agitated, then you had to keep her with a lot of tension in order to train her in this way. So at the same time, in the beginning, if you don't hold with a lot of tension, it's like she runs away. So I need to go and get her and bring her back. And when I keep her with some tension, it stays there. But as soon as I let it go, she runs away. This is the same thing in meditation in the beginning. It's more the time that you spend running around, bringing back the mind than the time that you use holding her. Then slowly she starts relaxing. And so at the same time, when she relaxes, you can also relax this tension. You can start holding her with this second level of attention that is called interrupted. So meaning I am able to hold the mind a bit without tension. Then after a while she runs away again. Then I go get her and she can stay there without tension. And then this goes on. This is the second attitude and is the one that stays from the 3rd stage till the 7th. So the 1st and 2nd level are the ones where one needs to keep with a lot of force. If you don't keep with a lot of tension, she goes away. The mind goes away. And this is kind of this means that if you want to meditate and the mind is not able to stay in the object, it means that you're doing the right thing. You're on the path. So this is what happens. This is exactly what happens. So if one gives us an explanation of what is the right path that I'm following, one gives some directions. One explains what you can find in the path. So at the same time, in the beginning, if you start meditating and everything goes well, probably you're not doing the right thing. Or you already reached that state without even knowing. But I don't think this is the case, without taking away from anybody. But there are people that have some great predispositions for meditation, and it's wonderful, but it's not the norm. So if in the beginning you see and feel this fatigue, it means that you're doing the right thing. So the first 2 levels, and in the beginning the mind is more out than in, Then from the second level, we are able to keep her for a while, and then she goes away, then she comes back. But this keeping her here requires some effort, some tension, also physical. From the third stage forward, there's no more tension. The mind still runs away, but when we get it back, she stays there. So it's like my dog, Maitri. First, it was like I needed to get her with a lot of tension, then after without, and she used to run away and then come back, but I could keep her without tension, even if then she ran away again. And this is important because we don't have to mistake meditation as a great tension. This is just in the beginning. After, when we go from the third stage forward, then this tension is not present anymore. Then there is what we call the uninterrupted attention. And this we have at the 8th stage, where we have this small effort in the beginning, and then we don't need to put any more effort because the mind stays completely in the object without having numbness or mental agitation. So the mind stays there uninterruptedly. And then the last state, called the spontaneous attention, it's the 9th stage, where we don't even need the initial effort, small effort at the beginning, but one just effortlessly enters in this meditative state. So these are called these 4 attentions. Just one moment.
C'era un passaggio qua che volevo leggerlo. È un passaggio di un testo di Paponka.
A passage here of Paponka Rinpoche in the Lamrim, Liberation on the Palm of Your Hands. There is a part here that talks exactly about all of this, and this part describes the moment where one develops this bliss resulted from flexibility of mind and body, and it's beautiful how it's described here. The translation is not so good, but we can adapt it.
Inoltre, placandosi i venti della disfunzione corporea,
so
in realtà fa riferimento alle abitudini cattive, alle cattive abitudini.
Okay, so when we pacify negative, the winds of the negative habits, with a sensation of bliss that arises on the head, on the crown, like a warm hand that is put on a hand as soon as you cut all the hair. I can have this experience, maybe not all of us, but imagine that one is there meditating, and at a certain point it's like there is this warmth on the head, like by putting a warm hand on the top of our crown that is directly in contact with the skin of the head. This is the description that is written here. Right after it, pacifying the bad habits of the mind, I need to go back to the Tibetan because translation is no good. So when it's pacified, this habit of the mind going towards the mental defilements, so this tendency, this spontaneous tendency, it's not that the mental defilements are pacified, but this tendency, spontaneous tendency of going towards attachment, anger, and the mental defilement, when we pacify this tendency, and it's generated this flexibility of the mind, for this force, power, the wind that induces the flexibility of the body pervades all the body and liberates from dysfunction of the body, so then the body can be used for virtuous actions without reluctancy. So here we have arises the flexibility of the body, where the body becomes very light. So what happens is, first we generate a sensation of pleasure that is like this warmth that comes from the head and generates this pleasurable sensation. And this is a sign that it starts with the sensation of the body that brings to a flexibility of the mind, and this is the mind that is not attracted anymore by the habit going towards mental defilements, so one actually relaxes, and this state brings also to a flexibility of the body. That means the body is ready to do whatever we want without complaining. And it becomes very light. It's like this inner sensation of well-being, both of body and mind, is like the body becoming so light, like cotton. It's this pleasurable sensation. So this is a way to describe, generically speaking, the state of meditation. Depending on this flexibility arises the great experience of bliss, of a pleasurable nature to the touch, staying in a meditative state without that any appearance arise, not even the one of the body, and with the body as dissolved in the object, and the body then becomes dissolved in the object. So at a certain point we feel this sensation of bliss, and it's like there's no distinction anymore there's no more this distinction between the body and the object of meditation, as if we don't perceive our body anymore, and this kind of fuses with this object of meditation. This is the only perception that we can feel. Arises the great experience of joy and bliss, of flexibility of the mind, and the mind. So what happens is, when the body feels this pleasurable sensation and the mind is completely relaxed in the object of meditation, and it's like all of this mixes and fuses, generating this bliss of the mind. We can maybe imagine what we're trying to say here.
Volevo solo leggere un altro passaggio.
I just wanted to read another passage of Paponka Rinpoche, of a text that is called
Tao e Miknam vuol dire, è un testo in cui Paponka Rinpoche
is a text where Paponka Rinpoche describes the various steps of developing meditative concentration with the function of developing wisdom that realizes the nature of all phenomena, and writes this conclusion in a form of prayer as a sign of good auspicion. I want to finish with this. So, developing the 8 antidotes. You remember which were these 8 antidotes? The first 4 are faith, aspiration, effort, and flexibility. Then we have
che era prima pigrizia, secondo.
So first is laziness with these 4 that we just said. Then we have this forgetting of the object of meditation. So we have memory. So then we have vigilance and awareness, mainly the vigilance. Then the next venom is not applying the antidote when necessary, so the antidote is to apply the antidote. And the 5th is applying when we don't need, so the antidote is leaving it that way, equanimity. So developing the 8 antidotes that counteract the 5 defects and going through the 9 steps with the 4 attentions that we already saw, so the tension and then the interrupted, uninterrupted, and then the spontaneous. The 9 stages with the 4 attentions, we put the mind unidirectionally on one of the virtuous object, and through this arises a calm abiding that comes from the joy of flexibility of body and mind. So once we eliminate it through the 8 antidotes, the 5 defects, and following progressively the 9 stages with the 4 attentions, one puts the mind unidirectionally on a virtuous object that we choose, and through this we generate an inner state of bliss that is a result of the flexibility or dutility of body and mind. And the supreme vision, with the wisdom that analyzes individually the meaning of non-self, analyzes in depth. Non-self is the existence of intrinsic, objective existence of the self that investigates in depth and relaxes in the meditative state. So I search the existence of the self, I see that it doesn't exist, I stay in this conclusion in a unidirectional way. And relaxes in a meditative state. And depending on this union where analysis and relaxation are together, arises a superior view of bliss. So when one unites the relaxing the mind in the object of non-existence of intrinsic existence of the self, plus the analyzing of why this is, of non-existence, of intrinsic existence, and the both of them generates this bliss of both the mind and the body. By doing these practices with the calm abiding and superior vision, without ever separating them, please grant me your blessings in order for a union of the both of them to arise in my mental continuum.
Quello che a me mi emoziona,
what gets me emotional, is the fact that we are usually very occupied by many things, and the sensation is like at a certain point we allow to open a small window in order to see something from far away, but still we can see it, that it's possible. And this is already huge. It's like when we allow ourselves to have this small experience, even if it's brief, we know that it's possible and we want to go back to it. So to us, in order to understand these words and imagine this, is immense.
Con queste parole
with this we conclude this part where our objective, where I wanted to arrive to this point, is allow ourselves to look at the map, see where we are, rejoice of where we are, that we find ourselves on the path, because many are actually closed in their houses, so it's already great. And we have in front of us a wonderful path, and we have a map, and we are able to imagine what we will find at the end of this path. And we're also able to imagine ourselves there. And this is one of the most important things to do, because with this we develop faith, and the basis of faith in order to have desire, in order to put effort, in order to be able to create familiarity and do all the rest. Remembering that it's never too soon or never too late. Okay? So let's do a break here and then we will do the practice together.
Losan tempe drume sasumgi drove munsel tato ne gyurchi nimo dele tsendele nime kuyan delekshi ninsen takto delekpe kuncho sumki chingelo kuncho sumki ngodrobatso kuncho sumki trashisho.
At dawn or dusk, at night or midday, may the three jewels grant us their blessings. May they help us to achieve all realizations and sprinkle the path of our lives with various signs of auspiciousness.
Let's
do our break, and after this you can inaugurate the new shoe holder, which seems something that is nothing, but actually is not.